Hello, and thank you for joining me in the class today. So today we're going to be painting a cute little sparrow at a fountain, having a bath. I found the picture on Pixabay. It was really quite cute and I just couldn't wait to paint it. So I'm painting in oils today, but you're most welcome to paint along in acrylic. I think the techniques are going to be the same. So let's go and take a look what the photo looks like, and then we'll take it from there. Alrighty. So this is what the photo looks like. So you can see it's not the full fountain, it's just a little zoom in of the fountain. But what I quite liked was all these the feathers that are all over the show as the bird is shaking itself and having its bath, and the tail feathers that are moving and stuff. So I think between that and all the water drops and stuff, it gives us lots of opportunity to show movement in this painting. So that's going to be quite great. So as usual, we'll start at the back and then we'll work our way forward. So I'm working on a 400 by 300 millimeter canvas today, which is roughly 16 by 12 inches. So if you're a patron, you can go and download. This is a tiled template for that, and then there's a sketch template as well. So I've taken out all the bits and just added in what I've sketched. So here with the bird, I've just roughly given myself an idea of these little ruffled feather bits. So it essentially looks like that. Alright, let's bring that guy back. So we'll start at the back and then we'll work our way forward. So it's going to be sky, and then I think we'll do this, and then we'll do the water, because we'll just make the water jump out from the fountain. I don't think we'll have to copy these water splashes. We'll just use them as inspiration for our own. And then lastly, we'll pop in the bird. So let's go over to the palette, and then we'll mix up the colors for the sky. I think we can put the photo down there. Yeah, so the main color there is definitely just a blue, cerulean, French ultramarine, just something like that. So we'll pop some of that down there. And that's obviously way too dark, okay? So we'll need some white. So that's just some titanium white. So I'll start with a lot of white and add a little bit of blue in it, because you've got, it's a light blue. So what you're going to do is you're essentially going to have if you start with a dark blue and then you add white, you could end up with this ginormous pile of paint. So I can see the ultramarine isn't identical to the color that we've got on the photo, but I don't think in this case it's really going to matter, because If you look high up in the sky, you've got a French ultramarine color. If you look lower down, it's more of a cerulean color. So by using just French ultramarine, we'll be fine. You're more than welcome to match it if you want to. What I'm more interested in at this stage is just getting the darkness, the tonal value of the color roughly the same, because we've got, if you look out there by the bird, to the left of the bird, it's dark. You got the darker feathers. And to the right, we've got lighter feathers. So we need to get that sort of an in-between tonal value so that we've got lights and darks. It must be dark enough for the lights, those white feathers on the right hand side, to stand out, and it's got to be light enough to stand out nicely against the dark feathers. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just comparing the tonal value of my color to see how light or how dark it is compared to what I've seen on the reference. That'll be good enough. Alrighty, let's get some painting medium in here. So this is the liquid fine detail. Let me try and do that without throwing it all over the the canvas like I did last week or last time. And I'll throw a reasonable amount in. White does tend to be quite a thick color, and we've got to cover a large area with it, so we can make it reasonably, give it a good coating in there. Yeah, I would say like a mayonnaise kind of consistency is great. That should be fine there. Okay, let's go and block in that sky. So for that, I think I'll just use a brush like this. You can use a soft brush. This is a soft bright. You could use a bristle brush as well. It would do the same trick. We just want to cover the canvas, that's all. So for this painting, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it almost like it looks like a thumbnail, where you've got in detail over here, and then as you move outwards, it sort of just fades out and eventually it just becomes blank canvas. You're welcome to fill in the rest. I think it'll just save a bit of time by doing that. So when I sketched out the outlines for the bird, I did go slightly into the bird. That way you can get the little ruffled feather effect where the sky is shining through in between the feathers. Hi guys, welcome. So I'm now going to go all the way around the bird. Against that outline that I did now sketch out. Knowing that the bird will end up being a little bit bigger than this initial outline over here. Just run it along there. And then when we get to this edge over here, I'm just going to just fade it out. So now I didn't go and mask anything off. It was just a little area, this bird, so it wasn't necessary to mask it. Alrighty, so the rest we can just scrub in. So yeah, just to get that like fading away effect, I'm just going to let the paint sort of run out. When I see the paint's running out on the brush, I'll just do a little bit of a crisscross effect on those edges over there like that. If you don't want to do this effect, you just continue painting all the way up to the edges and make it just a solid coating. Yeah, this will make it look a little arty, almost like you've sat out there by the fountain and you've quickly sketched out this. Yeah, cool. Let's just get rid of the worst of that for now. Now let's go ahead and let's mix the colors for this fountain. So I think I'll wash the brush. We're probably done with this color on him for now. What I do suggest is make sure that you've got a little bit of sky color left, because you never know when you've painted your bird. You just see, oh, there's a little place that I missed or whatever, that I'd like to have some more sky shining through. Then at least you can work it in. And also here by the water drops, maybe you need just a dash of that sky color. So it's always nice to just keep a little bit of it one side. So I'll leave that there. Awesome. So for that fountain, it seems to be like cream colors, eh? So that's definitely lots of white. So I'll top up the white that we got there, and just be generous this time. And let's see, it doesn't seem to be quite yellow oak. It seems to be more like a burnt sienna. Maybe I can zoom in on that little area over there. In the center there, it seems to be more like a burnt sienna kind of color. So I'm looking past those water, or the light reflections. I'm looking past that. And I'm looking at the color underneath. So again, it's a light color. So I'm going to start with white. And it's a reasonably large area. So I think we'll just block the whole fountain in with that color. And then we'll add all the shadings in over that. So we'll take that, and then just a little bit of burnt sienna initially. Let's first see what does that color do to the white. What kind of difference does it make? That's actually given me that little top highlight color, that what I've got there now, seems to be that little highlight color. So you know what, I'm going to leave that pile there. I'll start a new pile. Why not? This time I now know I can be more generous with the burnt sienna. That's still quite bright, that. So let's try tone him down just with a bit of ultramarine. Not too much. We don't want it to become blue. It's still that creamy browny kind of a color. Maybe even a bit of yellow ochre. So let's get some yellow ochre there. Yeah, we're getting there. I think that's probably about close enough. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, let's move along. So while we're mixing, we might as well go and mix up the rest. So there's like quite a yellow ochre kind of color, eh? So let's maybe take this and add yellow ochre to it and see where we get. Don't need too much of that, so I think that's probably going to be about it. And then there's one more, a darker color. Can you see there's those little darker dots in between? Let's go up a bit further. There's a nice big patch of that. So I'm assuming this is like a type of a moss or a mildew that's growing on the fountain. So for that we definitely need like a raw umber. Let's pop some raw umber down there. And I think I'll just top these guys up while I'm at it. Alright, so let's take some raw umber. I'm just going to check it. Yeah, it seems mostly that color, maybe just a little touch of burnt sienna in there. There, that's fine. That'll do the trick. Awesome. Now I'm just going to work some medium into each of these guys, just to get it to that mayonnaise consistency. That way we know it's going to flow onto the canvas nice and smooth. So if you're working in acrylics, you'd obviously just you should be able to work as is, but if it's your paint's too thick, then you just add a little bit of water into it instead of the painting medium. That one was quick. And him. Fabulous. And that painting medium is now also going to help with the drying. It's going to speed up the drying process. Awesome. Yeah, let's stick with that, the same brush that we used before. So let's go well zoomed out on that. We can see the whole we want to see the whole fountain now. Alright, so I'm going to take that. Let's see, let's pop the palette down, maybe over. Just give me a second to rearrange these, the view. I think let's do that. So I'm going to take this, that sort of, what would you call it, the base color of this fountain, and let's block it in. So I'm going to get that edge there still nice and sharp, but everything over here I'm going to start fading out. And then I'll also just skip that top bit because he's well highlighted. So there's none of this color really there. So we'll get to over there and then we'll fade him out again. So let's block in this majority over here first. And you don't have to get it perfectly smooth. You can see there's lots of texture that we need to build up on this painting in the area. So let's go to there. So if you're still seeing brush strokes and stuff, that's fine. No worries. Okay, so we've got to ourselves to the edge over there, making sure there's not much paint on the brush. Can you see that? And now we just use our little crisscrosses and stuff and fade them away on that edge over there. That's cool. So these guys here are like little bumps. So they have, as it curls around, look at this guy over here. You've got a highlight because the sun is coming from the right to the left. So you've got a highlight over there, a mid-tone color, and then a darker version. So we're going to have to swap colors around the whole time. So I'm going to first take a look and see where do I see this main color that we've got. And then block that in those places. For example, I can see it around here. Now remember, I'm not going all the way down to the end because I want that fading out effect. I can see some of it over here, and then everything over there. Let's take a look on this side. That seems to be running around to there, and then obviously we've got now our fading out effect on the edges. So that's good enough for there. Hey, let's take a look at the next color. The next color, let's maybe do the highlight. So I'll just wipe off the excess on my paper towel. There's no need to wash the brush now because you're just using a variation of the same color. All these colors that we're using in the fountain are harmonious, right? So it's no need to wash the brush. That little bit that's left after wiping it doesn't matter. Alright, so let's carefully get this edge in over there. to work right up against the blue. Try now to pick up any of that blue. Okay, so we'll put that down over there. And we've got some of that over here. So for now, I'm just popping colors down. I'm not worrying too much about getting any textures or anything like that. Just popping the colors down. Okay, so that goes to around that vicinity. And then there's some more over there. And that's that. Okay, so now I'm going to again just wipe off that excess. Now let's start getting these guys blended in. So I can see over here, this whole fountain is like got a rough texture to it. So that's giving us like a spotty dotty effect. So that's what we're going to have to paint to get this looking the same. So over here, I'm just going to gently pull this over there. So look what's happening. Maybe I can zoom in on that. So let's go to there while I zoom in on the other camera. Okay, let's go to there. Alright, so I'm just gently pulling this over like that, in that direction. Can you see on the left hand side it goes in this direction, and then here, this is where roughly where we are looking at from. So I'm pulling down, and as I go that way, I'm going to slowly start moving in that direction. So let me exaggerate that movement. I'm going to do this straight and then around like that. So it's going to take some of the dark and put it into the light, and some of the light and into the dark. And that should get us that effect. If you see one color is overtaking the other, then wipe your brush off and pick up some of the color that's disappearing. For example, here I can see the dark is overtaking the light. So just pick up some of the light on your brush. So now there's more of that, and that will then balance out the strength of the paint that's overtaking the whole mix. And just dabs and dabs, just dots, dabs and dashes like that. So there we go. Now we've got our roundness. Okay, let's move to over here. So to get that, again, it's the same thing. Just use dabs. I'm literally going to use just the corner of the brush. Just dab and dash to get that texture. I'll do that one. I know it's off camera. But it's just really quick. Just dabs and dashes. So all you're getting is like a bit of a mottled effect. You do that on all of them like that. Alrighty, let's take a look. I think we can bring this one here a little bit further. And then there we've got quite a bit of that yellow ochre kind of moss that's growing on that. So maybe we can even just do that for now, and I'll leave just a little bit of a suggestion of where that edge is. And over there we can dab and dash a little bit more of the lighter guys in. And I'll go over the edge over here to soften that edge. We don't want a hard edge. It's not a corner. So we'll just tap over it like that. Same thing over here. Okay, I think that'll do there. Right, let's go wide again. So can you see how quickly that has already formed us a nice little 3D effect there? Now let's continue adding more of that texture. So we're going to do that with the moss and stuff that's there. So I'm taking a look and I'm seeing here's a few little highlighty bits. I'm just going to dab and tap them in that area. They sort of just seem to disappear there. So obviously this is a round little bowl fountain. And by the looks of it, it's not a large one either, eh? Okay, let's pick up some of the yellow ochre color. Let's get some in over here. So over there, let's just get rid of that. Let's just get rid of the palette there for now. Because of the perspective, you want to get this curve, same as what we did here. They were curving this way and then straight and then that way. Here on this edge as well, you want to get all these little marks curving down, following that shape or the contour of your fountain. So I'm picking it up and I'm tapping it down. Like that, down in that vicinity over there. Okay, and we'll do the same here and there. Remember, this is now just to get that spotty and dotty effect. So I'm not doing it everywhere, just where I see this yellow ochre moss, whatever it is that's growing there. So there's quite a bit that's running down here, hey? So we can be quite generous. I think we can even use neat yellow ochre. It's quite intense, the color. And as I tap it down, look what I'm doing. I'm turning this brush in my hand, and that's now giving me all sorts of different shapes. So I'm not getting a pattern happening there. Okay, now we've got some of that that's now running over this little bulge over there. That's forming that the shadow side of that bulge. Okay, we'll continue it over here. So I'm still ignoring this little water reflection for now. Just ignoring that. And can you see there's some guys coming straight down like this as well? Maybe those little lines going down there are from when maybe the fountain doesn't always run. Then you've got some little marks that are maybe run down there, and then because it's dried up, they've got stuck there. Okay, let's move across to this side. So I'm roughly copying what I see, but I'm not slavishly copying it. I'm just using that as a rough guide. Let's go to a wider view again. Then here there's more, a whole big amount over here. And a few little guys in between. And same as that little bump over there, you've got some of these guys. So obviously this it tends to get stuck in those little dimples in the texture of the fountain, the cement or the plaster or whatever it is. This looks like plaster, eh? Okay, and here where this real dark guy is, there's also yellows in between. So I'll pop the yellows down and then we'll put the darks over it. Okay, yeah, there is some of that, but there's less. So I've got now less on the brush. As you've tapped, it's mixed with the color that's underneath. So now there's less. So I'm gradually getting lighter and lighter of these dabs and dashes as I go down. And out here there's less and less. I'm going to just 1 or 2 taps and then I'll stop. That's enough. Let's take over here. Also here is just a few little very light little marks over there just for some interest. Yeah, that should be enough. One or two little taps on that little rounded edge over there, just to help create that dimpled texture. You can start to see it coming out quite nicely over there already, hey? Awesome, let's take this, get rid of the worst of that. And now we'll go over to this guy over here. That's raw umber burnt sienna mixture. So there's way less of that, and I've just picked up paint. So obviously there's lots of paint on the brush, right? So I'm going to start here where I know there's lots. Just using that corner of the brush. And a very, very gentle tap, because I need this paint now to lie on top of all that. There's already 2 layers in that area there, because you've got that base color, plus you've got all that yellow ochre color. So if this doesn't want to sit on top of the previous colors, just thin your paint down a little bit more to get this to sit on there. So needless to say, all of this here is not all just one color. You've got lighter and darker bits as well. So use that mixing effect that's happening as you're tapping this on to your advantage to get little areas that are lighter and darker. And here it's collecting on that. So I'm thinking how the water would run down here, right? So it's come down there. It's hit here, and then it's maybe started running down that edge over there like that. Maybe 1 or 2 that will just strip streaks of water that would maybe run down over there like that as well. Yeah, this is quite random, eh? Just keep tapping it. Very, very, very gentle taps. And now these little individual guys over here, make sure that you keep turning the brush and also varying the pressure on the brush so that sometimes you get bigger marks and sometimes you get little smaller dots and dabs and dashes. It does need to look exactly like the photo, so always bear that in mind. All you're trying to do is create that impression. So what I'll often do with something like this is I'll stand back quite often. And I'll even sometimes, instead of just sitting down and painting, I'll stand up and paint. Because that also gives you the same effect as though you're standing back. Then you see the bigger picture and not all the little individual dots and stuff that you're painting now. Okay, so in here there's just a few little smaller guys. There's not too much in this vicinity here. Here there's one or two distinct little guys that are running down. So I'll work them in along with the others. And here I'm going to get this to follow that contour. Can you see that? And that also just helps to show you and bring out the shape of that little bump thingy over there. Here it's very fine, so I'm just using the absolute corner of your brush. If you find yours is giving you too big a marks, maybe go over to a fine liner. There's a few random little guys. I think that's probably about enough. So what you can do now is just check over it, and maybe you find that there's a place where it's too dotty and too spotty. Even just take your finger, just gently tap over that mark over there, and that'll soften it up. So I'll soften that up, and then I'll bring one or two dots back into that. That gives you a bit of like a shading effect. Let's maybe bring that one running down there as well a bit more. Similar to what we've got over there. This one's just a little bit more prominent because there's more in this area over here. Then as it runs down, it gets stuck in those little dimples. Yeah, that's cool. I think we can leave that one at that. Alright, so I'm going to wash this brush now. I think we're done with this color. Now here you've got that light reflection as the water is running down. There's some reflections happening over there. So I think I'll take just a round brush. It's not a fine round brush. It's quite a large sized one, and pick up this top, that highlight color that we had over there. It seems to be the same color reflecting. So if I look at that, it's reflecting in this area over here. But now because of that rounding of the fountain, take a look carefully and you'll see the spots and dots that are reflecting are sort of running in that direction over here, flat over here, and running down there like that over there. Same as what we were doing up top there. So I'm going to pick up the paint in a chisel point. So I've picked it up like this, turned it 180 degrees, and picked up paint again. So now that's given you that nice little fine chisel point like that. Maybe we'll do that. And now, as before, I'm going to just very roughly in the same places or in the same vicinity as that I see it on the photo, I'm going to put it down. Obviously, don't try and get it exact. You'll never get it exact. It's impossible. This is all random. But if you see patterns like that, like where this is running along in that, generally in that sort of angle, then I'll stick to that. Because I know that's now going to give me that similar effect. Then as we come out over here, they're at this angle, but there's way less of them. So I'm using quite a lot of paint because I need this now to lie on top of all those other previous layers. So if you need to, thin down your paint even more. That's fine. Okay, so there's more over here. Quite a lot of reflections in this vicinity. There's some guys running down here. And again, they're following that curvature. Then as we get to here, it's also gradually becoming less and less. You can sort of say fading out. Okay, on this edge over here, there's some reflecting in here. So there's a small little reflection, so I'm just using the corner of this brush, those guys, and then out over there. Can't particularly see that, so that's fine. Here's one or two odd little guys reflecting around there. But you can also, a lot of those guys are, they're not all hard edged, so I'm just tapping it here and there. But you've got to be very careful of this, don't tap too much and smudge all this all into each other. Sort of just tap individual places every now and again, and then just wipe your finger clean. So I've actually got a cloth which I keep on my lap as I paint, which I use for stuff like that. If I need to just soften up my hands or clean off my hands, clean off my hands. Then from there you can now decide whether you've got enough. I think for now that's enough. We've got the effect over there. Bring that out a little bit further to here. There's almost no paint left on my brush. It's just very light little dots over there. A little bit more out to this side. Yeah, I think that's enough. That's good enough there. Awesome. We can wash this brush. Now we can add those specks of water and stuff. So if we look on the photo, let's just bring up that photo nice and large just for a second. Can you see there's lots of fine specks of water, and then we've got a few nice big ones. So there's obviously we've got a fountain that's over here, just off, out of the picture. And now there's big amounts of water that are splashing over here, and then little drops that are coming down and hitting the water here and just floating around in the breeze. So I quite like that. I think we'll try and get that effect. Maybe not quite as full as we have on the photo. Just for the sake of time. You can obviously decide whether you want to make it full or not. So for now, I'm going to put a zoomed up picture there, just so that you can see the effect. So we'll start with all those little guys that are in the background, and then we'll come back in and add these finer little individual splashes. So I'm going to just use the brush, and I'm going to add different sized dabs, dashes and dots. So I'm turning the brush. Sometimes I'm tapping lightly, sometimes I'm tapping hard. Sometimes I'm even going to make a distinct patch like that. So what this is going to do, this is going to now start giving us those lighter bits, those tiny little droplets that are just floating in the air. So you can see it doesn't take too long. Just a few here past the bird. Yeah, that should be fine. Alright, now I'm going to take just a large soft brush, because some of them are well out into the distance. So I'm going to very gently, very, very gently go over these guys. I don't want them to smudge out further than what they are. I just want to push them out of focus. So just very gently go over them. Just like that. And that's pushing those guys back out into the distance. Because now they're out of focus. Once you've worked them in a while, then you feel you'll see that you'll be able to work a little bit more harder without the dots spreading further and bigger. Cool. Now we'll go through that same process again. And we'll add some more dots. So these are now, because they're more distinct, and they'll also be lighter, they'll be the closer little dots of water. So I'm also going to make some of these guys a little bit bigger. Little distinct splashes of water that are coming down. Yeah, that should be fine. Alright, so here by the water's edge, now we want to create that nice splashing effect. So let me just set up that camera, and then I can zoom in on that area for you. Yeah, cool. Let's go to there, and we've got those splashes up on the reference photo, so that's great. So I'm going to take that shape, and I'm just going to very roughly recreate it. So like there's a splash over there. Here's one running up there. So I'm looking for this lighter color that I'm using inside that splash. And I'm popping him down. So somehow, in general, you'll find that the lighter bits, the lighter colors are on the outside, or on one particular side. So you're going to do that. There's a smaller guy. There's a few. So here you can now be bold with the colors. There, I think I'll just add a smaller guy splashing up over there like that. Otherwise they're going to be three soldiers in a row. So I've given a bit of extra space over there, and he's now smaller than those two splashes. So Marie's asking, am I using sky color for the drops? I'm actually using the lightest color that we used for the fountain. Because what happens is, maybe I'll go back to the photo and I can show you. I was just about to explain it anyway, so. What happens with those water drops is they reflect the colors around them. So yes, the water is see-through, but as it changes angles, because it's a smooth, shiny surface, it reflects the colors around it. So look really carefully, and you're going to see all the colors. You've got sky colors, you've got bird colors, you've got fountain colors, and then you've got the sun color as well. So can you see here at the bottom? Look at these guys, they're all brown. Because it's reflecting, there's probably more of that moss lying on the top of the fountain over here on that surface. So that's why it's reflecting that. So maybe there's more of that mossy color on the inside of the fountain. But then you look at these guys over here, they've got sky color, and you've got bird color, and you've got that mossy color and everything all reflecting in it. So that's what we're busy doing now. We're busy putting in all those colors. So I started with that lighter fountain color simply because it then gives me an extra color to highlight. In other words, I've left white as that I can add in afterwards as a highlight onto that. Alright, so we've already got brown over there, or blue, sorry, and now we're adding brown. So again, it doesn't need to be in exactly where you see it. It must just be in its places. I find if you keep the light on the outside, and then the other colors on the inside, you usually A for away. Alright, let's get some of these little lighter little bubbly bits over here. They brown, so I'm using neat yellow ochre in that. So now make sure you come nicely up to the the edge of the fountain so that it's basically forms a straight line over there. Okay, let's see, maybe we can even put just a tiny touch of burnt sienna. So I'm just picking up neat burnt sienna, just touches of it here and there. And that'll be bird reflections in the end of the day. Yeah, I'm going to add a few more extra little splashes and things popping up over there. Okay, let's maybe even go over to some white now, some neat white. So I'm just adding like little highlights and stuff inside this. There's a little bit of dark in that guy over there. And maybe just a touch of blue. Alrighty. That wasn't too difficult, eh? Now we can go over to the fun bit, and that's painting the bird. So let's do that. I think we've pretty much got all the colors that we need on the palette already. I don't think we need any new colors. So what I think we'll do is we'll start off just by basically blocking in the bird. And then we'll come back in. We'll add more detail to it as we go. So for this, I'm just going to use just a soft Filbert brush. Just get basic colors down there where I see them. And usually, because there's just little bits of them, I'm going to just do like impromptu mixes. I'm going to mix the color up as I need it. Because there's so little of them, it's pointless trying to mix up individual colors. So like here, I'm going to just put in you can either use just a burnt sienna or you can use a darker color. But it is the majority color does seem to be like burnt sienna, so I think let's do that. And for now, this blocking in stage, just right up to the edge, to your initial sketch lines. When we come in with the detail, then we'll add those little nice little feathery bits. Okay, so I can see here it goes darker, so I'm using raw umber. If you need to use a smaller brush, like a fine round or a round brush, go for it. Just don't try and do any kind of detail work now. That's not necessary. Okay, I can see I'm going to use quite a bit of this brown, so I'm going to bring it over here. It's easier for me to work with in that corner. So think at this stage is just correct colors, correct places. That's all you want. You want to get rid of the white of the canvas, in other words. And if you can do that, you're A for away. Because then it's easy to just come in and add some details over that. Alright, so these feathers here, they are moving. The bird is now shaking itself because it's now just maybe dunked itself in the water. So leave those guys for now. Don't block anything in over there. We'll add our own little effect over there afterwards. If you need a darker color, just take your raw umber and mix it in with the French Ultramarine. That gives you a Paynes Grey. See, in this area over here, you've got that beautiful dark. So you can see there I've now had to use a smaller brush because I don't want to mess up that beak using the big brush. Pretty little chest area over there. Okay, so here you've got all those hairs that are just zooming out there. So I'm going to ignore them. I've got basically this Paynes Grey now on my brush, but I can see it's too dark for there. There it's more like a bit of a grey color. So I'm going to just pick up any light color, just a bit of that. That'll do. Could use white as well. Just to adjust that tonal value down a bit, just to get it lighter. Get there. So those are now all those lovely shadowy bits in underneath the feathers. Right over there. And now these feathers here, they're not light, they're actually quite dark. And if you look really carefully, you're actually going to see there's a bit of a browny tinge to them. So they either got a bit of browny color to them, or maybe it's picking up some reflected color. So I'm going to just mix up some of the burnt sienna into that grey, just to get that browny tinge in this area over here, because it adds some interest in the shadows. Yeah, that should be fine over there. Okay, now I'm going to lighten that up, that grey, quite a bit. And let's start getting just a feel for these lighter feathers. Not painting feathers, still just blocking in, getting rid of the white of the canvas. But I am using just a light flicking motion, just so that I can start to picture for myself these feathers that I am going to be painting. Think of this as the shadows of the feathers. So when we come back with the detail, we're actually only adding like the highlights onto it. Yeah, that should be fine there. There's a few little light guys coming out this direction. Don't want to go too far. There's a few lighter guys around there. And the same over here. I think we can even go a little bit darker there. There's some lighter guys over here. I think I'm going to add them in also just with a darker grey for now. Just like that, that's fine. I think that's the end of the white, so we still have a little bit more brown work to do. So let's see, this here is like a burnt sienna color. So let's get him blocked in with a burnt sienna over there. These are more of a browny color. And it goes a little bit lighter to the tip. So let's maybe work a bit of lighter color into the burnt sienna and into that. Over there and there seems to be a bit lighter. It's got a few little lighter streaks in there. I think we can put those little streaks for the individual little feathers. We can put that in with a fine liner. So let's get this nice and dark. What the heck? Let's see, here seems to be one last guy. Also is a little bit lighter. One extra little feather sneaking himself in over that vicinity. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so now let's tackle that. So we've got, it's lighter colors. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to adjust the colors to get those tonal values right. And I'm going to just add like the main line in over there. Because remember, that's not all out of focus because it's moving. So I'm going to just try and sort of add a basic shape there. And there's another guy over there. There's a little bit of dark there and a little bit of dark there. And that's it. We'll stop at that for now. Okay, so now it's all the way down to a fine round. Now you need a fine liner. So I'm going to be using this guy over here. Nice, soft, fine liner. Because now we have to add all that lovely detail in there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, as I pick up the paint, I'm going to pick up the paint to get myself a chisel point. So you pick up the paint, turn the brush 180 degrees, pick up the paint, then you end up with a really fine tip like that. See there? And that's going to give you a hair effect. So all the while, everything I do from now on, I'm going to be using that little chisel point. Okay, so just for a second, I'm going to go to the wider view. I want to just show you how I'm painting. Because that's quite important, because all this paint here is now wet, right? So I'm going to take another big brush, and I'm going to use it as a mile stick. So I'm using this tip over here, and I'm putting him down wherever I can, where there's nothing important. And I'm leaning my hand on that. And then I'm making my marks on the canvas. Alright, let's go zoom back in again. So let's get that nice little fluffy edge over here. So now you're going over that initial line of yours. This is where the detail work comes in. And this is why you worked a little bit inside the line when you did your initial block in. Because what it's doing now is, well, look at that. We actually missed a spot here. Didn't block all this in. That's bizarre, hey? I know about the beak. I left him on purpose. Anyway, there you go. So you've got to overlap that edge over there. And that gives you that impression of individual feathers. And it's that edge there that allows you to just create the impression of feathers here inside the body. And because of that edging that you've done over there, your brain fills in the details for you and tells you, oh, hold on, what I'm seeing here is detailed feathers, when it's actually not. And now to get that feathered effect, I've got my chisel point. I'm just using a light tapping motion. That's all. Okay, for the beak, I'm just going to put down the colors in the places that I see them. Because it's quick little shadings. And there aren't many of these, there isn't much of these colors that we need. So I'm literally just mixing up a tiny little speck of each color and putting it in. So there's a bit of a browner version, and that's more of a yellowy version over there. And then in the center, so let's just wipe off the excess paint from that brush. It's just a darker version, something like that raw umber burnt sienna mix. So put that down over there, like so. And I'm going to wipe off all that paint on the brush again. I haven't washed the brush, that's not necessary. Just wiping off any excess. And I can gently wipe over where those two colors meet. Just directly on that meeting point. Wipe over it. Clean your brush by wiping it on the paper towel. Wipe over that meeting point over there. And you see what happens? It forms a short little shading. And then those two colors meet around there like that. Now I'm going to create myself a little chisel point. Because we want the mouth. So where the top and the bottom of the beak meet. Just in a light little line. Just the impression. Kerry's asking how am I keeping my palette wet? Kerry, I'm actually painting in oils today. But if you're painting in acrylics, to keep your palette wet, what you're going to do is spray your palette with a light spray of water. Every now and again. Just a light little spray of water. Just darkening up this little edge over here, just a little bit light. Just like that, that's fine. Alright, let's take some of this black, so it's the raw Umber French Ultramarine mix, our Paynes Grey mix. Mix them up 50-50. That always gives you a nice good black. And I'm going to block in this eye with that black. Very carefully. Can you see I'm leaving just that little bit of a halo around it? Because if you look very carefully, you'll see there is a little edge around it. So Kerry's saying it's difficult to tell the difference. Yes, it is. If you paint correctly, it's very difficult to tell the difference. Well, not correctly. If you paint using the same techniques and stuff, you can hang these paintings up on the wall, whether they oil or acrylics, and you won't tell the difference. Okay, so now I'm going to use a rigger brush. And I'm just going to pick up, let's say that base color we used for the fountain. It looks roughly that same tonal value and color as the ring around the eye. Very gently going to put that in. So if it's too, you put it in and it's too prominent, then all you do is clean the brush and just go over it a few times. You can even pick up a bit of a darker color as well if you want to, just to have something on the brush. But I find usually just tapping it like this, you're going over that same spot, it softens it up, then it's not so harsh. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of burnt sienna and even just a little bit of that highlight color from the fountain, just to get a highlight burnt sienna color. I'm just going to add a few extra little highlights onto the top of the head. Now can you see I'm chopping it in like that with the chisel point? These are super short little feathers. So just that little chopping motion gives you that effect. So look carefully at the photograph and the angles that you've got over here. Pick up paint often. Yeah, that should be enough. That's plenty on there. Okay. Now it's just back to the fine round. Let's continue on down over here and let's do some of these darks or the browns. So it's dark in that area over there. So we do all the browns, get them done. And then after that we'll tackle the whites and so on. So there's a little shadow over there. So I'm just working that in because that's not going to eventually give us a bit of a separation between that bunch of feathers and that bunch of feathers and so on. I'm not going to try and get every detail into this bird. We're just going to create the impression. Not too much details. I don't think it's necessary. Okay, so just darken that up a little bit, and I'm just gonna, there's a few little darker marks in there. Just darker colored feathers. So I'm just dragging them in, just like that. Okay, let's go a little bit down. Think about there's good, eh? Alright, so here again we've got that shadows that's been cast by this set of feathers on those guys over there. So that's giving us that little line over there. Alright, so all these guys, as I put them in, I'm putting them in the direction of the feathers. Just a few little chisel lines running down. Here's a bit of a shading. You've got darker over there, going through to lighter over there. And that's just from shadows. We know our light is coming from the right to the left. So the body itself and the top feathers are casting a shadow on the ones below it. But now, as that feather comes out again, it gradually picks up more and more sunlight. Okay, so can you see I'm now just creating the impression. I'm not trying to paint every feather. It's not necessary. Just the impression is good enough. Alright, let's go over to a lighter color. I think we basically do seem to be done with the browns. So we'll go over to our whites. So maybe while we're at it, while we're in this area, let's do that that out of focus effect over there. So I'm going to take a clean dry brush, maybe just this round brush, and now you're going to take that little line and stuff that you've put over there, and you're going to rub over it a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, And look what's happening. You're fading it into the background, into the sky color. And you're losing all your hard edges. And that's making it look out of focus. And when it's out of focus, it looks like it's in movement. You get a motion blur effect. Let's do that. Let's get some darker guys inside here for interest. So I'll pick up some darks. Just put it down. There. Some over there. And just clean that brush. Make sure it's nice and clean. And you just fade those guys in as well. You don't want any hard edges. If there's hard edges, then it's telling your brain that you're seeing detail. This must all be fuzzy and blurry. Sometimes I'll even just use my finger like that. Now you can see that bird shaking those feathers like really quickly. Okay, and I'm going to come back in here with this, because this is a feather that's, these tail feathers are overlapping those moving ones. So I've got to get this nice and sharp edge. Full definition on those guys over there. Same over here, nice sharp edge over there. Alright, so here I'm seeing a little bit of a lighter feather sitting over there. Now I'm not going to use white for the feathers. I'm going to use a grey. So I'm going to take some of this fountain highlight color and just work it in here into these greys to make it lighter than it was before. You see that? So again, it's just a little impromptu mix. Now we need to do details. So I'm going to take just a blob of painting medium. So if you work in acrylics, just put down a bunch of water down there that you can dip into. Because now you need this paint to be pretty much thin like an ink, so that we can get those little fine feather details. And I think we'll just start here at the back and then we'll work our way forward. So keep picking up your paint with that chisel point. Go over the edge of the bird and then into the edge. So to get a little bit of a mixing happening with the colors that are there. And you're now going to do these little dabs and jabs using the chisel point all the way along. Very, very, very light touch. The lightest touch that you can. So you will know occasionally as you're working like this, you'll find maybe there's an area, for example, like over there. Can you see over there? There's a little darker patch in between these lighter feathers. So you can just come back in and add those using exactly the same motion. As you are for the lighter guys. And now here what you're looking for is those little patterns that are formed inside the feathers. And then the other thing you're looking for is little overlaps, little places where these feathers overlap each other like that. Here's just little dabs and dashes, to be honest. Can't see a feather effect, they are so fine. So just the lightest little touch over there like that. That's good enough. Okay, here we've got multiple little rows of feathers that are overlapping each other. So look what I'm doing. I'm overlapping little areas. For example, that light is overlapping the black. Now I'm going to come back in with some black. And I'm going to overlap these the lighter guys again. So now you have light feathers overlapping dark feathers, and then dark feathers overlapping light feathers, and that's giving you all this lovely effect that you want. Okay, so what there was a little bit of a dark in there. There was a few little dark marks over there. But really, don't try and get every last detail in. Just create the impression using this feather effect. Just the impression, that's all you need. Remember, when you stand back, you're not going to see those fine little details. So you just want the impression. You're painting this now and you're sitting right on top of this canvas. But when this painting is finished, it's sitting up on the wall and you're sitting on the couch. So it doesn't help you go ahead and paint every last feather, because under normal circumstances, you're not going to see it. In other words, you would have just wasted your time. So every time if I do change color and I wash my brush, I dry it off on my paper towel or on my piece of cloth that I've got, a t-shirting cloth. What you are now really interested in is getting these directions right. That's quite important, because that shows you the shape of the bird. Okay, there's that beautiful little chest area. So let's get that worked in. So really fine hairs on that edge over there. And it forms like little crescents. So I'm making that crescent with the feathers in the correct direction. Can you see that? Alright, I think that area there is not quite dark enough, so I'm just going to quickly darken that up. You know what, I think I'm actually even just going to use a different brush so I don't have to wash this one. Because it's just dabs and dashes, there's no detail there. What we're looking for is that contrast to make these lighter feathers stand out. Alright, I think, yeah, if I look at it, that was the worst of the detail that we needed to paint. From here on, we can start painting just impressions again, because this is masses of feathers. So as this bird is now shaking off that excess water, these feathers are all heading out in their own little directions in clumps. So it's just little jabs like this. When you're busy with an area like this, it's really easy to just lose your place. And if you do, don't worry about it. Just pick a spot and work as though that's the spot that you're in. Christine is asking if I'm using any medium. Absolutely. I'm keeping my paint really nice and thin. It's the consistency of an ink. I need it to be really thin because that's the way you get the paint to flow off the brush without you having to press hard. Because if you press hard, then what happens is the bristles on the hairs on the bristle, the hairs on the brush, how would you put it? Those little bristles spread out because you're not squashing them down, right? So that's that, and then you just lose all that fine detail. You lose your chisel point. Okay, so whenever I've got an opportunity like this, where I've got a light overlapping a dark, that's when I'm looking to show individual little hairs. But when there's a big area like this, it's just a mass. I'm not going to try and show individual hairs. Like here, here's a light overlapping dark. So now I'll slow even way down to create individual hairs for myself. Because they're the ones that are completing that illusion for you. That illusion of having painted every last feather. Okay, so we're nearly done. As we go around there, they're getting darker and darker because now the body itself is moving away from the light. So we'll skip that there for a while. Let's stay here by the lighter bits. So can you see my feathers have deviated from the photograph already. And I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter. As long as I've created the effect, I'm happy. Alright, let's take I'll just move up to over there. We did have more of a browny effect inside those feathers. So I'm just making sure that this is still lighter than what I had there before, so that I can get some detail into this. If it's not lighter, then we'll have to just keep lightening it up. So some of these feathers are sort of each heading off in their own direction, eh? Yeah, that's cool. I think that's giving us a nice little fluffy effect. And then before we forget, let's zoom out on that. The bird has feet, so we've got to paint in those feet. So I'm just going to take a dark and just put something there. I can't particularly see the feet, right? So just there and maybe a little dash over there, so to show that it's in between the feathers. That's good enough. Alright, cool. Let's see, what haven't we done? There's a few little lighter dots and spots still over there. That should be alright. Now I'm going to take some neat white. So I'll pick up some neat white, put it in one spot on the palette so that I can add some water into it. Or some painting medium. So we'll get that to now the consistency of an ink. And now we can use this to add some highlights. Just here on the right hand side, because we know this, the sun is coming from the right hand side, right? So this will show us that nice beautiful sunlit effect. Just nice quick little dabs and dashes. You don't want to cover all the other paint, because otherwise this light won't stand out. Even like that, there's a big patch over there, so I'm just going to highlight the light side, which is the right hand side. Okay, we'll do that over here as well. There's a few little lighter areas here. And here. Nice, super gentle touch on all these guys now. Where else? Yeah, I think that's about it. Okay, so now there's one really important thing that we still need to add. So you take your white, and actually I think I'm going to use the rigger brush for that. Take your white. Now as you pick up the paint, roll the brush. Let's go to the palette just for 2 seconds. Let's go there. As you pick up the paint, roll the brush like this. And that pushes all these hairs into a super sharp fine point. Don't think we need the photo or anything, just like that. Now the sun's coming from the right hand side, so you put a little highlight in the eye, just to the right of center, and that brings that whole bird to life. Stand back and see what does our painting look like. There we go. So I quite like this little fading out effect. If you frame it, you'd also now frame it, even maybe with a white border, so that that edge is visible. And that just gives it a look of a study, as opposed to a full painting that you've spent hours and hours on, you know, that you're trying to get every last detail. Even though technically you do have quite a bit of detail in there. I think what I am going to do, just while I've got this thin white, these big splashes just need a sharp edge. So I'm just going to use the fine liner, or the rigger brush, just to get those edges sharp. Because what happens with water is it's got surface tension. So although it doesn't need to be perfectly round like a ball or anything, it can have odd shapes, but it's got to be nice, continuous, smoother shapes like that. And there we go. I think we'll call it a day on that one. Let's go to there. That should do the trick, eh? There we can see the picture. Alrighty guys, so if you did enjoy the class and you would like to get access to more of my classes, there are plenty here on YouTube, but on my website there's hundreds more, and when you are a patron then you can get access to all those lessons, the handouts that go with them, all the PDFs and so on, the downloads. And then of course you get to post your artwork and I'll give you feedback on it. So go and take a look. The website address is below. It's super affordable. I'd really like you to join me. So Betty is asking, is linseed oil a good medium? Yes, linseed oil is a great medium. So what the linseed oil thins down your paint perfectly, because that's what they use initially to make the paint anyway. But it doesn't add a drying effect to it. So when you buy a commercial medium, let's get, say, this guy over here. Close the bottle this time. So this is the one that I tend to use. Just get him to focus there. So it's a liquid fine detail. But there are other ones. As long as it's got, you'll see they're like quite liquidy in the bottle. That's what you want. They give you a good medium. So the medium has a drying agent in it. It usually has like a varnish or whatever that helps with the drying process. So you'll find that it gives your painting a semi-gloss. Plus, your painting will dry, instead of in months, it will dry in days. Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed the class. You're welcome. Yeah, I was quite looking forward to this one. I like the water splashing up, and I like the detail on the fountain as well. And then obviously the movement in the bird. Movement in the bird was always he was always going to be a clincher to whether we paint him or not. So the next class is a pencil drawing lesson next week. I'll go and tell you now what that is. So obviously if you're watching the replay, then that may be available already. So just go and take a look. We are drawing a kingfisher. So another bird. So it's a kingfisher on a stick with a nice little bokeh background. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Also a nice bit of detail that we can get into that bird over there. And some nice new techniques we can learn, eh? Every painting has got its own little twists and turns, even though they're similar. So you always learn something new. Alrighty, so I'm not seeing any new questions coming through, so I think let's call it a day. Thanks for joining me in the class. I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week. Hopefully next week we'll have the timer on the paint basket and stuff correct, eh? Cheerio.